Welcome back to the show, everybody. Well, from ruminating on the possibility of failure to serious ideas of inflicting harm, intrusive thoughts come uninvited and unwelcome to our minds, and for some can cause a lot of distress.
Studies have shown that 94% of people experience unwanted, intrusive thoughts. And in certain cases, they can also be linked to specific mental health illnesses. To tell us more about this complex topic is psychologist Adisa Azubuike. Hello and welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I love about the show. I mean, I feel like those numbers are startling because I don't really know if I know what intrusive thoughts are. So can you break this down for us?
Yeah.
The first thing I want to say is that almost everyone has intrusive thoughts. Some of the statistics have been as much as 9 out of 10 people have it.
Wow.
So if you haven't had it, you know somebody who has. And basically it's like, have you been standing on a subway platform and all of a sudden you have a thought that comes out of the blue that I feel like jumping off the platform? Or the thought comes that says, you're taking care of your child. I know this happened with me, with my first child, my 2 children, and you're taking care of a baby and you have this revolting thought that you want to throw the baby down or it's going to drop. Or you're at home with a pet and you feel, maybe I should stick a pin into the dog. These coming out of the blue. Those are intrusive thoughts.
But mostly, for the most part, are they kind of met with just sort of like a, oh, well, that's a weird thought, and then just move along?
Yes, for most people, they come and they go and they're meaningless and they last for a few seconds and most people never think much about them at all. Sometimes they're absurd. You're driving and you feel like turning into the traffic or you feel like plucking somebody on the head with a, it happens.
Are some more common than others?
Yes, the most common are self-harming and other harming and also blasphemous or impure thoughts.
Oh, wow.
There are also, it's very interesting, there are also intrusive thoughts about, am I blinking correctly? Am I swallowing correctly? Am I breathing correctly? There are also intrusive thoughts where you may think, I have an image. It's not just thoughts, there are images, there are sensations. You may have a thought that, I don't love my spouse anymore, my partner. Or maybe the sexuality I've always thought I am not. So they come out of the blue and they can be quite distressing because you are thinking that this is not who I am. This is going against my values, my mores, and this is not who I am. And so therefore you fight against it. And because you fight against it, these thoughts stick.
Yeah.
And they come back and they repeat and they repeat and they repeat.
Wow. Got it.
This is fascinating. So do they have any meaning behind? I mean, if 9 out of 10 of us are having these thoughts, is there a meaning behind them? And then is there a way to cope so that they don't stick?
You'll hear me say this quite often. This is very important. It is not meaningful. It's not, the contents of the thought is, even if it's very compelling, it's not meaningful.
Okay.
Because most of us have fallen to the myth that every thought is important, every thought has a hidden meaning, every thought needs to be looked at.
So this means I'm a bad person.
This means I'm a bad person. No, we have many thoughts that, remember we have like, I think 20, 30,000 thoughts going through our head a day. Most of it is meaningless, most of it is junk, most of it has really no meaning. But what happens, because these thoughts are so antithetical to our values, we get stuck on them.
Okay.
Because they go, well, I'm a gentle person. Why would I want to kill this person? Why would I want to do this?
Right.
So yes.
So when do intrusive thoughts become a mental health issue, and at what point does it become something that we should get professional help with?
It becomes a mental health issue when it's becoming more, the recurrence of more frequent, it's more intense, and it's leading you to dread and dysfunction in certain areas of your life, where you can't sleep, you stop going to neutral or pleasurable activities, you inundate your loved ones and friends with pleas for reassurance, you even avoid places, people, and situations, and so you're causing a lot of dysfunction, and you're wasting a lot of time because you're taking long to do things, or you are avoiding things.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm one of the 9 out of 10. I tend to have very specific types of intrusive thoughts around my health, and it has really led to a lot of anxiety. So can and when does that sort of rumination, that cyclical thinking of that thought, does it get linked to something like anxiety, or even in my case, sometimes a panic attack?
Psychologists have a term called stickiness of mind, and basically it's meaning that do we have a brain that's more anxiety promoting? Is it more sensitive to anxious mind sort of thing. So oftentimes that's biological, that's genetic. And so we don't know. You may seem very okay, and I may seem very but we could be very concerned about anything that happens to us. Okay? So oftentimes very anxious people develop intrusive thoughts. People who suffer from depression can develop intrusive thoughts. OCD, PTSD. Some people even say that flashbacks are a form of unwanted intrusive thoughts, which they are when you think about it. So anxiety is closely related to intrusive thoughts.
Can we get into that a little more? Because sometimes these thoughts are indicators of underlying mental health conditions, like you mentioned PTSD and OCD.
Yes.
So what is that connection? How does that work?
Well, the connection is that the stickiness of mind, the anxiety predisposed mind doesn't cause intrusive thoughts, but they create the environment where they can occur. So absence of a sticky mind, absence of anxiety doesn't mean that you won't have any intrusive thoughts, because again, we all have intrusive thoughts. I had an intrusive thought to jump through the window and not to come here today, but here I am. But so because of that, the anxiety and the underlying mental health can exacerbate the frequency and the maintenance of the frequent thought.
So what is the best treatment for intrusive thoughts?
Now, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but in my opinion, the best treatment for intrusive thoughts and OCD is what we call acceptance and commitment therapy. It's called a third wave of cognitive behavioral therapy. And acceptance and commitment therapy, I think you may have mentioned earlier in the show a little bit about mindfulness and self-compassion and acceptance. And by going to someone who practices that and who's familiar with OCD and with intrusive thoughts, you will be able to learn how to forge an accepting attitude to the thoughts, and also how to learn about exposure, which helps you with the thoughts down the road.
It's just such a fascinating discussion.
Yes.
Adisa, thank you so much for bringing
Thank you
this
for
to
having
us
me.
today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey there, wasn't that great? Do you know where you can find some equally good content? Our YouTube page. It's filled with discussions, debates, and some laughs. Head there now, like and subscribe.